The honorary degree will now be conferred. Mr. President, will you present the honorary degree candidate, Maria Tippett?
Mr. Chancellor, I am proud to present Dr. Maria Tippett. A student at SFU in earlier times, and now a distinguished author and accomplished cultural historian and critic, Maria Tippett has brought great honor to her country and to Simon Fraser University. Maria Tippett's career is a model of persistence applied to talent. An early graduate of the university, Maria credits her experience at this institution as laying the intellectual foundation of her outstanding success. Here she was inspired to challenge the established canon and to see things anew. And for more than 30 years, she has done just that. As a writer, lecturer, and ambassador of Canadian culture, she has with grace and wit shared her love of learning with university communities and the general public, offering to both her unique perspectives on the immeasurable importance of art and artists in our society. Her body of work is impressive. Its range encompasses books, articles, speeches, catalogues, radio and television pieces. Her erudition and empathy illuminate every one of her subjects, and her frequently piercing insights challenge accepted wisdom. Such works as her study of F.H. Varley and Bill Reed broke new ground and engaged scholars in profound debates about these major artists and their role in our cultural history. And her study of Emily Carr is considered by many to be the finest book on that iconic Canadian artist. A mentor who has generously extended her hand in friendship to many aspiring writers and scholars, Maria Tippett has also acted as an ambassador for Canada and for this university. Through her Canadian Studies seminar at Cambridge, she introduced this country's scholars to their British peers. As a curator at the Cambridge Gallery, she presented Canadian artists to an international public. And at the invitation of the Government of Canada, she has lectured abroad, her eloquence raising the profile of Canada's art and artists. Throughout her illustrious career and to our great benefit, Maria Tippett has stayed true to her vision and injected new vigor into the study of Canada's cultural history. Her unique voice has been recognized with numerous honors, including the Sir John A. Macdonald Prize for Canadian History, the Hubert Evans Nonfiction Prize, and the Governor-General's Award for Nonfiction. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of this university, I ask that you now confer upon Maria Tippett, this distinguished alumna of Simon Fraser University, the degree Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
Maria Tippett, by the virtue of the authority vested in me and in the Senate of this university, I hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa. Dr. Tippett will be hooded by Dr. John Waterhouse, Vice President of Academics.
It is with pleasure that I now call on Dr. Maria Tippett for her convocation address. Dr. Tippett.
Chancellor Louis, President Stevenson, distinguished faculty members, honored guests, and my fellow graduands. Today, most of you will be graduating after having spent 4 years, or maybe 3 years, at Simon Fraser. During that time, you may have juggled a part-time or even a full-time job with your studies in order to pay for it, unless you're fortunate enough to have parents who gave you an helping hand. You will have met a lot of new friends, and some of you will have even met your future partner. I think the percentage is quite high. Finally, you have self-evidently taken a sufficient number of courses to have earned yourself a degree. But after today, what will you have for all of your hard work? What will you have received? Well, for those of you who've earned a professional degree like teaching, your career path is really quite clear. But for those who've received a more general degree, your future may not really be so clear-cut. But maybe that's not such a bad thing, because it was part of the original plan. When the BC government asked a man named Gordon Shrum to set up this university 40 years ago, he was determined to create an institution that would give its students a broad and liberal education and not simply train them for a specific profession. And Gordon Shrum did this in several ways, and ways that were really innovative at the time. He ensured that students would be taught in small tutorial seminars as well as in mega lecture theaters. He opened the enrollment not only to fresh-faced high school graduates, but to people who hadn't completed their high school education, to people who were picking up their pension checks. He established a seminar system that enabled students to study all year round. Shrum and his colleagues also hired professors who were young and who came from countries all around the world. Finally, he encouraged extracurricular activities such as art exhibitions, experimental films, fiction, poetry readings, plays, and dance performances. And he gave as much attention to the selection of this place, known in those days as Snake Hill, as to the university architects, Erickson and Massey. When I came up here as a student in 1970, I knew that the place was new because everybody was calling it the Instant University. I also knew that, like Berkeley in California and Sussex in England, SFU had experienced its own share of protests and sit-ins. And finally, I knew that the architects, Arthur Erickson and Jeffrey Massey, had created something special on the campus above the clouds that we now call Burnaby Mountain. Much nicer than Snake Hill. What I didn't know at the time when I came up was the extent to which the university that Gordon Shrum and his colleagues had created in just over 2 years, that's why it was the Instant University, would determine the way that I would really think for the rest of my life. Let me tell you why. When I came here, I had a strong interest in the visual arts. I'd lived in Europe for a few years, and I was really interested in the fine arts. And yet, I enrolled in the history department. I was encouraged by my history professors, however, in my desire to study art in a course on the German Reich, to make the painters who belonged to the Hudson River School the focus of a course on 19th century American history, and to make the writers and the artists associated with the Russian avant-garde the subject of my honors thesis. All of this within the history department, and all of this representing a wide-ranging approach to my subject that was really novel at the time. But I really have to say that much of my education up here took place outside of the classroom, attending readings by the gay novelist David Watmo and the Russian poet Joseph Brodsky, hearing Murray Schafer's symphony composed for orchestra and 4 snowmobiles, joining a student demonstration for a cause that now escapes me, smoking my first joint of marijuana, my first and my last joint, I should say, and engaging in lively and informal discussion with my fellow students and professors every Friday evening in the student cafeteria, which we transformed into a pub. You're very lucky now. When I left Simon Fraser in '72, armed with my honors degree in history, I admirably fulfilled Gordon Shrum's intention. I had no specific job qualifications at all. But I had acquired something more valuable than a professional degree. Discussion during my tutorials had taught me to question authority as well as to examine my own beliefs. The careful attention my professors gave to the writing of essays had taught me how to pull the thorns out of my ungrammatical prose and made me into a writer. Studying the fine and performing arts within the discipline of history gave me a new approach, an interdisciplinary approach, which I value to this day. And whenever I've been subsequently curating exhibitions or judging literary prizes or teaching university students or writing books, I've realized the debt that I owe to this place. I might never have turned my passion for the arts into a profession if the writers, the filmmakers, the musicians, and the playwrights I encountered through the Center of Arts here had not set an example, had not shown me that it's possible to become a writer. And if my professors had not given me the confidence to think outside of the strict discipline of historical studies. So in the end, it's not the content of my courses that I remember cramming into my head the night before the examination that has remained with me. It's the way I was taught, the environment of the place where I studied, and the people I met up here that's significant. I know that my time at Simon Fraser made me into a different person, a more fulfilled person, and yes, an employable person too. And my hope is that when you look back on your study here in 30 years' time, you'll feel the same. Good luck, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tippett.